Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to dive into some of the absolute greatest unsolved mysteries of human history. And the crazy thing is, these mysteries are literally sitting in our museums right now. Just think about it for a second. We can split the atom, we're sending rovers to Mars, but we are still completely baffled by ink on parchment and carvings on wood left behind by our own ancestors.
To kick things off, ask yourself this. What secrets are locked away in these ancient texts that have completely defeated our best and brightest minds? It's honestly maddening. The sheer frustration of looking at a perfectly preserved document, knowing for a fact that a human being deliberately recorded their thoughts, their history, or maybe their most sacred beliefs, and we just can't hear them. So in this explainer, we're going to break down the anatomy of decipherment. We'll look at one spectacular success story that proves it can be done, and then we'll examine three profound mysteries that continue to mock our modern intellect.
All right, let's jump straight into Act 1, the triumph of Linear B.
To really grasp the tragedy of a lost language, we first have to understand what it actually takes to save one. And that brings us to the brilliantly cinematic life of Michael Ventris. I mean, this plays out exactly like a Hollywood detective story. Picture this. It's 1936, and a 14-year-old British schoolboy named Michael Ventris is on a school trip. He's at an exhibition on Minoan Crete, and he actually meets the 85-year-old legendary archaeologist Sir Arthur Evans. Now, Evans had excavated the Palace of Knossos and found thousands of these clay tablets covered in an undeciphered script he called Linear B. Evans was absolutely convinced it wasn't Greek. So young Ventris walks right up and asks the old man, "Has it been deciphered yet?" The answer was no. And you know what? That single brief exchange lit a fire in Ventris that lasted his entire life. The amazing part is that Ventris didn't grow up to be a linguist. He became an architect. He never went to university for classics. He just worked on Linear B as this obsessive hobby for over a decade. And against all odds, he cracked a code that had baffled the world's leading experts. He announced his incredible breakthrough on BBC Radio in 1952, only to tragically pass away in a car accident just 4 years later, mere weeks before his definitive book on the subject was even published.
So how did he do it? Well, the crucial point here is that Ventris didn't use formal linguistic training. Instead, he built heavily upon the brilliant pattern recognition work of an American scholar named Alice Kober. Ventris took Kober's findings and started organizing these strange symbols into elaborate grids. It was exactly the way an architect organizes structural elements in a building blueprint. And when he applied this grid to known place names on the island of Crete, it clicked. He realized the symbols were spelling out recognizable words, like Knossos, the very palace the tablets came from. Ventris discovered that the text wasn't some mysterious unknown language after all. It was actually a highly archaic form of Greek. In one stroke, he pushed the history of the Greek language back 500 years before Homer. He made it the oldest readable writing ever found in Europe. It was rightfully dubbed the Everest of Greek archaeology.
But of course, it couldn't stay that easy. Which brings us to Act 2, the Linear A frustration. Just as the whole world was celebrating Ventris's monumental triumph, we hit a massively frustrating twist. You see, the discovery of Linear B raised hopes that its older predecessor script, which was used by the Minoan civilization before the Mycenaean Greeks took over, known as Linear A, would just be the next domino to fall. But Ventris succeeded entirely because the underlying language turned out to be Greek, a language scholars already intimately understood. Linear A? It remains completely unread, over 70 years after Ventris's breakthrough. And here's the maddening part. We actually know what many of the symbols sound like. That's because Linear B borrowed its writing system directly from Linear A. But when you physically sound out the words in Linear A, it equals absolute gibberish. Why? Because the underlying language matches absolutely nothing we know. It's what linguists call a linguistic isolate, a language with zero living or dead relatives. So yeah, we can read the letters, but the words mean absolutely nothing to us.
Okay, let's take things up a notch with Act 3, the enigma of the Voynich Manuscript.
From a missing language in ancient Greece, we are now escalating to something even more bizarre. We're talking about a 240-page text, carbon dated to the early 1400s, that might not even be a real language at all. Welcome to the Voynich Manuscript. Named after Wilfred Voynich, the antique book dealer who snagged it in 1912, this manuscript is written in a completely unique script. But honestly, it's the illustrations that really throw you off. The book is jam-packed with highly detailed drawings of plants that simply do not correspond to any known species on Earth. It has star charts that don't match our night sky. And most famously, it features these wildly elaborate diagrams of nude women bathing in pools of green liquid, all interconnected by this strange plumbing system of tubes and pipes. It's wild. It has defeated professional cryptographers, elite linguists, and even modern AI models for 6 solid centuries.
Now, because this manuscript is so incredibly tempting, it constantly attracts flashy, unproven breakthroughs. It's a document with a legendary, almost mythical backstory. Historical legends suggest it was once owned by the Holy Roman Emperor, Rudolph II, a guy who was absolutely obsessed with alchemy and the occult. Some theories even try to tie it to the Elizabethan alchemist, John Dee. With a pedigree like that, it is no wonder people desperately want to be the one who finally solves it. But this intense desire has created what scholars refer to as a graveyard of false solutions.
This happens so often that experts actually coined a specific term for it: voyniching. It perfectly describes when eager academics force their own unsupported, highly confident meanings onto unread texts, and we've seen it time and time again. Back in 1978, someone claimed it was a heretical Cathar dialect. In 2019, a university academic claimed it was an unattested Proto-Romance language. We've even seen claims involving AI circulating wildly. But what did all these headline-grabbing solutions have in common? Not a single one of them held up to peer review. Medieval linguists swiftly rejected them, pointing out that if you apply their incredibly loose methodologies, you could essentially make any text mean whatever you wanted to. We see this exact same phenomenon with other artifacts too, like the famous Phaistos disc from Crete. That's been solved dozens of times as everything from a prayer to a board game, with absolutely none of them accepted by mainstream scholarship.
So it is absolutely vital to check if these viral headline solutions are actually accepted by the broader academic community before you buy into them. Because right now, the honest truth is that many serious researchers are beginning to suspect the Voynich Manuscript might not be a code at all. They propose it's simply a meaningless, elaborate Renaissance con job, just a hoax designed to look incredibly profound and valuable, basically to fleece a wealthy buyer, without actually containing a single word of real knowledge.
And that leads us to Act 4, Rongorongo and the Tragedy of Lost Literacy.
We're shifting gears now from intellectual frustration to a profound cultural tragedy on Easter Island. This isn't a story of a medieval hoax. This is the story of a genuine human voice that was almost entirely extinguished. The islanders there developed a highly visual, totally ingenious reading method for a wooden script called Rongorongo. It's written in what's known as reversed booster fadon. Basically, this means you read one line from left to right, and when you hit the end, you physically have to rotate the wooden tablet 180 degrees to read the next line, which was carved upside down relative to the first. It is a wonderfully interactive, tactile way of reading, and incredibly, it might be the only indigenous writing system ever created in all of Oceania.
But today, only 25 authentic tablets are known to survive in the entire world. The tradition of reading Rongorongo was brutally disrupted. In the 1860s, a devastating wave of disease and horrific Peruvian slave raids swept through Easter Island in 1862 and 1863. These raids captured and killed a massive portion of the population. And tragically, this almost certainly included the elders and scholars who were actually fluent in reading the script. In the blink of an eye, the living chain of literacy was severed. Because that living memory was severed so violently, the later generations of islanders simply didn't recognize the significance of these wooden boards. I mean, how could they? The people who could teach them to read were gone. As a result, many tablets were accidentally destroyed. They were repurposed as fishing reels or literally just burned as firewood. It wasn't until French missionaries arrived and intervened in the 1860s that the surviving pieces were finally rescued. But by then, the silence was permanent. Rongorongo remains completely unread today.
Let's pull all these threads together. Conclusion: the fragility of written language.
Looking back, we've explored an incredible success, an unbreakable isolate, a potential hoax, and a heartbreaking cultural tragedy. And the slightly uncomfortable takeaway from this explainer is that literacy itself is highly fragile. Yes, Michael Ventris cracked Linear B through an obsessive, massive effort, but he also had the extreme luck that the underlying language was Greek. It was a language we already had the dictionary for. If you change either of those variables, the script goes dark. With Linear A, we lacked the luck of a known language. With Rongorongo, a genuinely unfamiliar language was combined with a tragic, violent loss of the native speakers. Without that perfect storm of effort and luck, a script simply stays silent, sometimes forever.
Which brings us to the end of our journey, and it leaves us with a pretty haunting final thought. We absolutely take our current global literacy for granted, but if our own writing systems were somehow lost, if the digital servers decayed and the chain of reading broke, what would future generations completely fail to understand about us? Would our greatest achievements just be another undeciphered script sitting in a museum of the future? Think about that next time you write something down. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the world around you.